Dr. Schrader, what is radiation sickness?
Radiation sickness is an illness caused by the absorption of higher doses of radioactive materials. The level of sickness is determined upon the amount of materials absorbed.
What type of symptoms do people experience from the radiation sickness?
There are many symptoms of radiation sickness. These vary dependent upon the amount of radiation absorbed by the patient, but many symptoms are the same. According to the Mayo Clinic, several of the symptoms of the beginning stage are nausea, vomiting, a lightheaded sensation, diarrhea, extreme fevers, and strong headaches.
Dr. Schrader, who are the most susceptible to the radiation sickness?
It's a good question. The most susceptible people to the radiation were the youngest children and the oldest people. Many of these people develop cancer of various sorts and or mutations. As stated by the World Health Organization, this was due to the absorption of radioactive iodine, which moved through the bloodstream and gathered in many different parts of the body, such as the lymph nodes, breasts, and testicles. Therefore, many victims would develop thyroid cancer, breast cancer, testicular cancer, and even leukemia from just the materials traveling through their bloodstream.
How many people could you give a rough estimate of, were killed by the explosion and or the radiation?
At the time of the explosion, there were somewhere around 150,000 to 135,000 Ukrainian citizens with only a 19.6 mile radius of the power plant. As stated by the World Nuclear Association, along with these citizens, nearly 700,000 liquidators, or Russian soldiers and laborers who worked on the cleanup project, were also affected by the meltdown. Although official documents state that the death toll and victims of acute radiation sickness is only about 4,000 people, as stated by Global Research. There have been additional research done, and nearly 985,000 people from the surrounding countries that have died from cancer or just suffered from acute radiation sickness had contracted the ailments somewhere past 1986.
What were the areas most affected by this explosion from Chernobyl?
Pretty much all vegetation, rivers, lakes, pretty much all the way down to the groundwater was affected by all the radiation. The plumes of radiation that went into the air were carried directly over what is called the red forest, which is a big forest in that area. And the radioactive particles all settled on a majority of the trees, and a bunch of them died. So that forest and pretty much all the water was affected by the radiation.
Is all of the fauna dead in this area now?
Surprisingly, no. Actually, there has been an overwhelming positive in the biodiversity and abundance of wildlife in the area. For example, we've seen elk, roe deer, wild boar, foxes, otters, and hares, all within the 10-kilometer exclusion zone.
What is responsible for this surplus, since radiation could not give these effects?
According to encyclopediaofearth.com, since humans have been evacuated, there's been a huge explosion of more healthy ecosystems in the area. At the time of Chernobyl explosion, about 40% of the area was used for agriculture. So the grass was mowed down by cattle and other livestock, and trees were cut down for firewood and construction and other things. Now that humans are gone, the grass is really long and the habitat is doing very well. However, we can't count this as a victory yet because we don't know what the effects of radiation long term are going to be on the species living in the area.